gentlemen, good morning. Good morning, graduates of the class of 2007. Good morning to everyone. It's a beautiful morning. It's a sunny morning, thank goodness, and it's a great, great pleasure for me to join President Durden and the board and the faculty and staff of this great college and all of your family members seated here to honor you today as you graduate. It's a wonderful day, and thank you very much for the privilege of being here. Graduation Day is special in our country, and it's about many things. It's a hopeful day. When a college community gathers to celebrate an ancient academic ritual in gowns and caps more conducive perhaps to the 16th century than to our own century, it's about your families who come from all across the United States to be with you today. It's about the collective commitment of this great faculty and the staff to build a great American college. But the real point of this day, obviously, is to honor all of you, you men and women who are Dickinson's class of 2007. This is your day, and we pause today to mark your completion of a great marathon of a college education. And then we ask you to go out into the world and do great things for yourselves, for your families, and for your country. Remember this moment, I'm sure you will. Remember how you feel right now, the bells are ringing in tribute to you. And remember the truly indispensable people who brought you here. Your moms and dads, your sisters and brothers, your aunts and uncles, your grandparents, your teachers, and your mentors. They dreamed something for you, which is now an essential feature of American life, an educated life, and that's a college education. I'm the parent of college-age kids, and I can tell you that your parents especially have paid for that distinction in more ways than one. They say that your graduation day is one of the most significant milestones of your life. There's your birth, there's marriage, there's having kids, and then there's the most momentous day of all, when you finally pay off your student loans. I can tell you from my experience that once that diploma hits your hands in a few moments, two things are going to happen. First, your parents are going to be very proud. Second, the Dickinson Alumni Association will be listed permanently in its data bank as a prospective donor. Don't be surprised if you even get a call on your cell phone in the next few minutes asking you to make your very first donation. This is a special day for you. It is for Dickinson College as well, because you're joining the ranks of a great American institution. It was the very first to be chartered in our country after the American Revolution. And I called President Durden about 2 weeks ago and I said, what do you suggest that I say to the students? He spoke with great passion and pride about your college, about its long history, and about its core commitment to engage the world. And I reflected on that, and I thought at a time when America is challenged as never before, and we need to find a way to broaden our engagement with the rest of the world, I think Dickinson is a college that's far ahead of the national curve. Because you're among the nation's leaders in Fulbright grantees. Nearly 60% of you have studied overseas, and your high percentage of foreign students and their foreign graduates here today is testimony to the fact that you're unique. You have an international dimension to this school that we don't find in most college campuses in this country. And you also have a valuable relationship with the State Department, because you take in students and scholars from North Africa and the Middle East every summer, and you try to teach them in this beautiful American town about our country, about our values, about who we are. And so they might go back to their own countries with a much more fair understanding of the United States of America. So I think you chose the right school here at Dickinson. And I know from talking to some of you at the reception last evening, I think you do too. I graduated from Boston College exactly 29 years ago, a long time, tomorrow. And I remember how proud my parents were. I remember how happy I was just to graduate. But frankly, I don't remember a single word that my commencement speaker said. Chances are you won't either. And I promise not to take offense. When I was 22, my reality was very much different from yours today. Your parents will attest to this. We didn't have cell phones, believe it or not. We didn't have personal computers or iPods. We certainly didn't have YouTube and Stephen Colbert and Borat and MySpace and American Idol and the phenomenon known as Sanjaya. But most Americans at the time did not dream of an international life. Most Americans didn't own a passport. Most people that I knew in my hometown of Wellesley, Massachusetts had never been beyond our borders. And despite the obvious dangers at that time of the East-West conflict, we felt protected in many ways. We felt separate in many ways. We were protected by the great Atlantic and the great Pacific Oceans. But your reality, I suspect, is going to be far different than ours in the 1970s, because you will live in a dramatically different world than the one we looked at 30 years ago. You're coming of age in the era of globalization, when Americans have never before been so buffeted by the winds of change in the world. And while our reality was the certainty and the bipolarity of the Cold War era, your reality is the uncertainty of a globalized world where our country will be in the future absolutely interconnected and intertwined with the rest of the world. You live at a time, and we all do, when our borders have shrunk and when technology and science have narrowed distance and time. And for the very first time in the human experience, global forces have now linked the fates of all people in all countries. This central fact is going to require you to think and live differently, but most importantly, to act differently than all the generations of Americans before you. Think of globalization this way. There's a bright positive side to it, and there's a dark side. The bright side of globalization is obvious for all of us to see. It's the awesome power of the information age, as cell phones and computers and jet travel give people, and I've seen this especially in the developing world, it gives people a degree of personal liberty never experienced before. Think of the medical advances that give us the hope of eradicating for the very first time malaria and polio and HIV/AIDS. Think of the cutting-edge energy research that you need to do to relieve us from our burden of carbon-based fuels by using hydrogen and biofuels and wind power and solar power. Think of space research that promises to take all of us, or maybe all of you, beyond Mars in your lifetime. When you look at globalization this way, you understand that we live at one of the most hopeful and positive times in American history. Think of that for a moment. We have more power in our time to create more wealth and conquer poverty and ignorance and improve the human condition than any other generation before us. That's an awesome thought. It's incredibly positive and hopeful. And it's a marker for how you might think about your own future and what you graduates can do personally to improve the human condition. So if you reflect on that, it's a great time to be graduating from college in 2007. There's so much you can do to make America and the world around us what you say at Dickinson you want it to be. You want to engage the world. You want to make the world more just, more compassionate, more economically viable, and more democratic. But there's also the dark side of globalization. And we see it in the rapid growth of negative forces that threaten the way that we all live, and in some parts of the world threaten our very existence. And these new threats are racing under and over and right through our national borders. We can't ignore them because the world isn't built like that anymore. Think of global climate change that threatens our international global environment. Think of the trafficking of women and children that robs them of their dignity. Think of the spread of global drug cartels that put crack cocaine and heroin in every street of every city in this country. Think of international criminal gangs that exploit the poor and the elderly. Think of the spread of chemical and biological and nuclear weaponry, and the really frightening thought that terrorist groups might join those two forces, terrorism and technology, and threaten us. These dark forces are a reality, unfortunately, in the modern world, and they affect all of us this morning, and we have to think creatively and intelligently about what to do to defeat them. And here's the truth about globalization, positive and negative. They can't be managed or confronted by one nation alone, even a nation as powerful as the United States of America. We're a great, powerful country, but we can't stand up to climate change alone, and we can't stand up to trafficking alone. We have to work with countries, with organizations on a multilateral basis all over this world, and that will be the story of your lifetime if we're to be effective. And this fact gives us an enormous opportunity to do good things.